All right, everyone. So again, thanks for everyone for joining. Most of you I know, some of you I know very well. In a uh, professional or a personal capacity. This is a class I have taught within GE. Gosh, 6, 7, 8 times now. I used to actually teach it to the teams I managed because they worked in Excel a lot, and I felt I could give them some skills that would help them just do their jobs more efficiently. Go home early, not work weekends, stuff like that. Uh, Normally, I would use G data. We're not going to do that here. So this is just some data I've pulled from a publicly available data source, but the skills are still very much the same. Generally, the people who take this, they know Excel, but they're not super comfortable with it, at least when it comes to doing maybe intermediate or advanced things. So that's where this really the syllabus comes from. And we've got live examples, and we'll just work through them. If anyone has questions, please chime in. I can't see people's images or their faces just because of my screen setup. So please just shout if you have any questions. But before I dive in, everything makes sense, or anything people want covered today that that I might not have put in the syllabus? Okay.
No, it's very good stuff, Chad. Thank you.
Okay. So let's jump in. If you see my screen here, I've got that cars file open. The tab name is USA_cars_data sets, and this is it's a download of an auction site. I'm pretty sure it was, actually I do think it was eBay, of about 2,500 cars, and that were for sale. So if we look at our data here, we've got a count. Looks like it starts from 1 and increases sequentially. We've got price, brand, year, title status, a few other things. The state, the country, and how much time is left in the auction. So the first thing I'm going to do here to make this make a little bit more sense to me, I'm going to go to View, Freeze Panes. I'm just going to freeze this top row. So when we scroll down, you keep these column headers. And so if I jump down here a little bit, I jump down to the bottom. Okay, we've got about 2,500 rows. But we all have cars. Everybody's been on eBay at least once in their life, so it should make sense. One of the first topics I cover with people is we're going to build some building blocks of Excel here. Is around the relative and permanent formulas. So, for instance, if I anytime I want to start an Excel formula, it always starts with an equal sign. So I hit equals, and let's say I want to make it equal this 6 days left. Okay, so equals L3. L is the column, it's in the third row, equals L3, and I hit enter. Okay, equals 6 days left. But if I take this, and I'm just going to do a Control-C, copy, and let's say I go down a few cells, and I Control-V, I paste it, just copy and paste. It says 2 days left. You're like, well, what's up with that? I mean, I clearly said it equaled this 6 days left. Well, in Excel, almost everything, well, I shouldn't say almost everything starts out to be a relative formula. So if I look at this, and I just put my mouse in the formula bar here, what this is really saying is this formula equals 2 cells to the left, which makes sense because if I go down here and I copy it and it's going, make sure it reads a little bit easier. If I go 2 to the left, oh, it equals 6 days. So if I copy it again and let's say I paste it over here, you can all do this with me, doesn't equal anything. And this is just a little bit of an Excel nuance. When you try to look for something and finds an empty, it gives you a 0. But look, it's looking for 2 to the left and it's empty, so it's not finding anything. and I'll just delete this. But what we can do within Excel, and we're not gonna get into it right away, but if you put dollar signs in front of the column and the rows, it makes it like a permanent formula. So let me do that. If I go into here, and I'm going to put dollar signs, if you see here, and unfortunately I can't zoom in too much, but there's a dollar sign in front of the L and a dollar sign in front of the 3. That means every single time, no matter what I do, it's going to refer to this. It's always going to be in the dollar sign means keep it always in that column or that row. And since I did it for both of them, it's always going to be in column L. It's always going to be in row 3. So it's always going to say 6 days left. And again, if I copy this, copy it again, and I'll go down to that next one and I'll paste it, Control V, it says 6 days left. So it's always going to refer back to that column and back to that row. I think where a lot of people get mixed up with their formulas, they start seeing dollar signs. They're like, well, what does that mean? And it gets kind of complex. And we're definitely not going to get to the point where you can start writing crazy formulas. But what I'm hoping to be able to teach is, okay, when I see something that's a little intimidating, how can I break that down just into smaller chunks, and then I can understand it a little bit better. All right, so that's our relative and our permanent formulas. That's sort of just building block number 1. Another building block is Excel has a few sort of, I call them magic words. True is a magic word, false is a magic word, and I'll demonstrate it. So if I type in my name, Chad, or you can type in your name, it just shows up exactly like I typed it. But if I type in true, it actually you notice how it centered it. It made it in capital letters. Same thing with false. Like, well, why are these magic words in Excel? Well, Excel allows you to do certain types of tests, and based on those tests, and we're going to do one in a couple minutes, based on those tests, you can write a formula around it. So you could say, you know what, oh, this price, if something is more expensive than $10,000, I'm going to call it expensive. But if it's less than $10,000, I'll call it affordable. Well, you'll write a formula that compares, this price to $10,000, and it'll return true or false, and then you can do your next formula. So I talked about our relative and permanent formulas. We've got a couple magic words that we can use, and then one other building block that is important is that when Excel sees something in a cell, just any type of content, it thinks it's one of two things. Either it thinks it's a number, or it thinks it's a string. And if some of you are like, what in the world is a string? Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. A string is just a bunch of characters or letters put together. So I'll demonstrate here. If I say, and there's a formula within Excel that is called isNumber. You can do this with me if you want. So and we start with the equal sign, and then you write the formula. And I'm going to get into I'm not going to just expect you to memorize these things, but so equals isNumber, parentheses, and then I'm going to, let's check on the mileage here. Okay, so parentheses, I clicked on the cell, so it's F14, and then I end the parentheses. So if you remember high school algebra, there's a beginning of the parentheses, there has to be an end. I hit enter. So what is this doing? It's saying the isNumber formula, which just returns a true or a false. I'm evaluating the mileage and saying, you know what? Yep, that is a number. But if I take that same formula, and remember I don't have any dollar signs in here. If I just drag it one to the right, same formula, but it shifted from this F column to the G column. It says black. Oh, you know what? Black is, or excuse me, did I say black? Yeah, there it is. Black is definitely not a number, so it returns a false. So that third building block it's either a number, and if it's not a number, it pretty much guesses it's a string. And some of you may have run with formulas in the past. You're like, like this should be working, but it's not. And something you could run into, and I'll demonstrate on this. I'll highlight this for us while we work through it. So I'll go in here, and if you put a little apostrophe before a number, you sort of trick Excel into thinking it's a string instead of a number. So sometimes you'll be doing a VLOOKUP and you'll see something, you're like, boy, there's this little green square. What in the world is that? Well, if we click on this, it actually is telling us, hey, Excel sees what you're doing, but it thinks it's an error. It says, well, do you want me to convert this to a number, or do we want to ignore the error? I wouldn't worry about that too much, but when you see those little green triangles, that's a flag to you that Excel is a little confused. So I will go in, I'll just take the little apostrophe out, and we've got our trues and falses again. So again, with our is number, we've got it's evaluating this, and it says yes, 22,909 looks like a number to me. So I've been talking a lot. Any questions? Does this make sense to everyone?
Yep, it does.
Yep, no question.
Okay. So I got a couple verbal thumbs up. I will take it. All right, next thing let's just get a little bit more complicated and write a formula here. And let's write that price formula that I was talking about before. And you can keep these little notes that we had before if you want, or I'm going to put in a couple columns. We'll put those out to the side. But in our column header, let's write, we're going to try to figure out if a car is expensive. And we all have different definitions of expensive, but on this one, we're going to say if a price is greater than $10,000, we're going to call it expensive. So if you are around my age, and I think most of you are, you might remember the TV show MTV Cribs. Remember, they would always go to the bedroom and this is where the magic happens. Well, this is Excel. This is where the magic happens. So we're going to do a formula. Every time we start with a formula, we're start with equal sign. And cool stuff starts to happen. So you start seeing a little bit different here, and you can write your formulas. But if you're not comfortable with formulas right away, I highly recommend clicking on this little FX button. And what it will do, you can actually choose the formula you want to use. You can even research them. So do I need to do a VLOOKUP? Gives you a little definition of the VLOOKUP. In this case, we're going to use the if function. And it'll step you through it. It's a wizard. So I'll click on if, and if that's not immediately there for you, you can go in here, type if, click go. You got all these different things that probably have to do with an if statement. We're going to just go with the basic one. So we're going to click OK. Okay, so if statement, and it gives you a little definition. Checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if true and another if false. So this logical test. And remember I talked about some of those magic words? Well, this is exactly what we're going to do. So logical test is any value or expression that can be evaluated into true or false. So we'll say we're going to go over here. So we're still in our wizard, but I'm going to click on this price because my formula is in that same row. I'm going to say is B2 greater than 10,000. Okay, so you all can do that with me. And if it is, so if true, I'm going to write expensive. Otherwise, I will write affordable. Now, can anybody see, what did Excel do here when I was typing that in that caught your eye, or did anybody notice?
You added parentheses to the word.
Yeah, it added parentheses to the words. So remember we were talking about remember those building blocks we were talking about, the I typed in expensive and Excel was like, you know what, that's definitely not a number. I think it's a string. So when you're in a formula, you want to put a string in, you got to put I'm like talking to the computer. You got to put your double quotes in. It'll do it for you. But if let's say I just wanted to write 500, you see no double quotes there. So I'm going to put it back in affordable. So everybody do this with me. And we'll click on OK. All right, and so let's look at this formula again. So it says if B2 is greater than 10,000, expensive or affordable. So this one's clearly less than 10,000, so it writes affordable. So everybody try to get there. Hopefully you're there already, but I'll give us all a few seconds. And again, if you get stuck, like I can write this formula off the top of my head, but I really like the wizard function. I think it helps you, and there's a little bit of like a help function if you need to learn more. But then once you're done with it,
So Chad, where do you find the wizard function again? Where is it?
if you click on this FX button, do you see it?
There. Okay, I see it.
Yep,
Okay.
it's to the left of the formula bar, and it will do it for you. So the only tricky part about this is if you have to choose a cell, you have to make sure you click on the right one, and sometimes the wizard's down here. But if you choose the right one, it's really helpful. But once you get there, and I'm assuming most of you know this, but if you don't, if you notice right now my mouse is like a white cross. If I go to the bottom right cell, it turns into a little black cross, and if you double click, it'll actually copy that formula all the way down. Most of the time, as long as your data is in decent shape.
Chad, real quick, where's the greater than function on the keyboard?
I'm using a Dell laptop. It's above my period, but I don't know how to describe it other than the greater than.
Yeah, got it.
What about if you wanted to say equal to? So if it's greater than or equal to 10,000, where does that equal sign go?
You know what? That's a good question, and that was actually a little pop quiz I was going to put out there. But all you need to do is put the equal sign here. So
Next to it.
yeah, you put it next to it.
Okay.
And one thing I'll probably say at least 20 or 30 times over the next 6 weeks is, if you don't understand, like if you're sort of guessing, you're like, okay, how do I do this? My God, like go to Google. Most of my Excel knowledge, like I got off of YouTube, because I used to tell the people who work for me all the time, this might be the first time you're finding this problem. This is not the first time this problem has ever existed. Like 100 people have seen this before. So don't be shy about asking questions. Go on Google, go on YouTube. Like somebody else has hit this challenge. I was helping out a coworker trying to like make images dynamically appear in Excel today. I still haven't figured it out, but like I found 30 people who'd posted videos. So in this one, let me do this again. And I put in the equal sign, and again, we can just double click it down. So white cross, little skinny black cross, double click, and it goes all the way. And if I jump to the bottom, you can see that equal sign is down there now. So if I've got, and you don't have to do this with me, let me see if I can find, let's see if any of our prices are exactly $10,000. Hey, we do. So we've got, a few of these are exactly $10,000. And they say expensive. So So if B436 is greater than or equal to 10,000, then say expensive. And one thing you can do, if you go to, and you can click on any of the formulas we just did, but if you go to formulas and you go to evaluate formula, this is something I use all the time because I'll write something crazy complicated and it's not returning the value I'm looking for. It will actually show you, I just clicked on the little button, how it evaluates. And you can do like you can step into it and see exactly where Excel is calculating something, and sometimes you can find your mistake. But in this case, 10,000 equals 10,000, true. So if it's true, I'm going to return expensive. And that's exactly what it does. Okay. Here's our first keyboard shortcut. So if you're anywhere within your data, and especially if you work in Excel a decent amount with big data sets, this can help you a lot. So most of you, if you're going to turn on your filters, you'll go to data, you'll click on filter, and it turns them on. Really not a wow moment. But if you want to use your keyboard to turn them off or on, you do Shift Control L, and it turns them off and on like that. And at least like I was in a 3,000 line file all day today, and I must have used that 100 times. So just instead of having to pick up your mouse, you don't have to be on the data tab. You can be anywhere. But Shift Control L is a huge time saver. But anyways, back to our formula. So we've got our formula in here, and we've got we've got a little bit of extra data where we can do our analysis. But let's do a couple other formulas, and to do that, let's go to the bottom of the file. And here's the second keyboard shortcut. If you hold down Control, so the Control button, and then use your arrow keys, what it will do, so I'm going to hit Control and arrow down, it's going to jump all the way to whatever direction you hit your arrows. So right now I'm at the bottom, if I want to go to the top, Control arrow up, and you'll see my mouse is up here, but I'll jump back down. And how that works is it will move your cursor as far as it can until it finds a blank cell or sort of a boundary. So like this is a boundary up here, this is a boundary over here, and I'll delete this cell. You don't have to do this, but if I'm at the bottom here and I hit Control arrow up, it stops where it right next to where it found a blank cell. So I'm going to put that back. So when you start moving around your file a little bit, if you just hold down Control, you can really make a huge difference. I had somebody who worked for me, and we were working a file like this, and she had her mouse and was started doing the little mouse scroll thing for 30 seconds. At which point, I think I grabbed the mouse out of her hand, and we we got a relationship on the way. But it can be a huge time saver if you work in big files. Anyways, let's go down here, and let's just write a couple more formulas. So somebody, everyone do this with me. Let's figure out the max price and the min price. I'll let you figure out what those formulas look like, but do it on. Actually, let's do it on the mileage. So let's find out the highest mileage and the lowest mileage. And I'll stop talking for a couple minutes, and I'll ask for a volunteer, or I'll pick on somebody. All right. Has somebody? And I'm going to ask for an answer, and then I'll do what you did to repeat your steps. So, did somebody get an answer for the highest mileage?
Okay.
I didn't quite hear that. Did somebody get an answer? Not yet. Okay.
So I got 100. This can't possibly be right.
Well, here so Rebecca. By the way, it's just great to see you, Rebecca. I'm like.
Here on the East Coast.
I'm just like I'm just so happy to like reconnect with people from my past and my present. So what did you do to figure this formula out, Rebecca? Or what?
Well, the number that's wrong for sure because it's saying I've got 1 million miles, and that's absolutely not correct.
Okay. Well, let's just see. So I'm assuming you wrote equals max, right?
Right, and then I just did the F column.
You did the F column, right? Now, did you like do the entire column like this?
I did the entire column. I double clicked it and got the entire column.
Okay. I would do it a little differently, but I think they're both valid. But so what I would do, I would choose, and we're going to cover ranges a little bit today, more in another week. But I would choose from F1, from cell F1, F, and then first row to F to 2500. Again, we'll click OK. And Rebecca's right. She's like, what in the world? This thing, it says 1 million miles. That doesn't make a ton of sense. Well, let me go back here. So I'm going to turn on my filters. And give me a second. I'm just letting the computer catch up. I'm going to go down to the very last one. Let me scroll down here. There it is, 1 million miles. What is that? Let's look at that. Okay, salvage title 2010. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a Peterbilt. Peterbilt's a semi. I bet it does have 1 million miles on it. So just a little interesting. I didn't do that on purpose, but I knew the answer. The little interesting data anomaly. So we actually do have something with 1 million miles.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to do the min. So we could do it just as before, or look, I'll copy this. I'm just going to paste it. And I can change max to min. But what looks funny there? What doesn't look right? It's a question to anybody.
Just the cell range itself is incorrect now.
Yeah, the cell range, so it shifted. So I did that slightly on purpose. And again, we want to, we really were looking from F1 to F2500. And there must be some data in here where something says it's 0 miles. Yeah, look, we've got one in. Well, I'm sure that's not correct. At least that's what the data is telling us. So we've got a 5, maybe more than 5, 6 in here where it says 0. So it is what it is. I'm sure that's not correct. The Peterbilt might be correct. But what I really wanted.
Title, it is 0.
Pardon me?
When it's a salvage title, they are 0.
Yeah, well, there's other salvages one in here that have data or that have numbers. So, let's here. Look, let's look at these salvages here. Yeah, all right. But the point I wanted to make on this one was about that shifting range. So we talked about the relative and the permanent formulas. So go back up to the top and let's do we're going to do a pretty, you can just do it over to the side. Let's figure out the average. So let's use the average function. Let's just figure out what the average year is and choose, what is this? I got 6 cells here. You can do it almost anywhere. And I just want to demonstrate the sliding ranges. So I'm doing it from D15 to D20. Okay, and on average, this is like, a little between 2016 and 2017. Well, if I take that, I'm just going to copy it. Copy, go down here, hit paste, it shifts again. So you can see where these blue, like the blue range, moves along with it. So if I really wanted to always look at these things, I'm going to put in my dollar signs. And I'm going to put them in front of all the columns and all the row numbers. And that way, if I pasted it below, it's always staying permanent. But that's something that is a common mistake that you spend a lot of time, you're like, okay, I got it. And then you move your formula or the data changes. And if your range doesn't follow, especially happens when you do VLOOKUPs. If I do a VLOOKUP and I'm looking for, let's say, this VIN number, and I copy that formula all the way down, my range can shift, down to where there's no data at all. All right, everybody with me so far?
And Chad, I figured out the issue, but I was getting, when I just tried the average, I was getting an error, and it said name ? So I don't know what was creating that. I did equal, right, average.
Yeah.
And then selected just a handful of the cells. And it says it's like a pound name ?
So you wrote I'm wondering, did you spell average correctly? I'm not meaning to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there an open parentheses and an end parentheses?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I didn't put the parentheses.
Yep. So Excel was guessing. It was like when you did that, it was saying, hey, I don't recognize that formula name because it recognizes average, but it doesn't recognize, average with a bunch of other stuff after it.
No, that fixed it. I got it.
Cool. All right, so let's do let's get a little more complicated. All right, so we started with our building blocks. We did a basic formula. Let's make it just like a little another level up. Not scary though. Let's jump to the bottom. So again, everybody, if you've got your control key, controlling your arrows, I'm just going to hold down control, hit all the way to the left and all the way down. Okay. Big time saver. All right, what I want people to do is I want to figure out the average price for different brands of these cars. So let's pick Nissan because clearly we have a lot of Nissans. So just write, I guess we can write it here. I'll write Nissan here. And then somebody else pick a brand of car. This is not really, it's not a trick question.
Let's put Ford.
All right, let's do a Ford. All right, we'll do Ford. Okay, what we're going to do, we are going to figure out the average price, but we're going to do a condition on it. Remember we did our true falses? That's just the condition. And what that looks like is the formula is called average if. Okay, and Excel has a bunch of these if formulas. You can do a sum if, you can do an average if, you can do a count if. There's a bunch of that stuff. So let's just do the average if. Okay, so I'm going to do, what do we do for a formula? Where does the magic happen? Equal sign. MTV Cribs, equal sign. Okay. So we're going to say equals average. You can type it like this, but if that's a little intimidating, remember you got your little FX button. And you can type in here, you can write, if I just write average, I hit go. So I've got all these different things that will do averages. And it's got some crazy stuff in here. We're not going to do crazy. we're just going to do average if. You'll even notice there's average ifs, like plural. So you could do an average based on multiple conditions. We're not gonna do that today. That's too much. Too much for the first day. So we're gonna do average if, and I'll write okay. Okay, so I've got, and if you see what I've did here, I actually made the same mistake that Rich did a minute ago. I was doing too much, so I'm gonna start over here. Just clear it out. All right, and I'm gonna go here, double click on average if, okay. So how does this formula work? Well, let's figure out what this does. It says finds an average for the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. So the key with this, and I do this wrong all the time, the range of cells you're evaluating is not the same as the range of cells you are averaging. So in this one, I will say the range, I'm going to look at all the cells from C1 to C2500. Okay? Now, what Rebecca did earlier was she would just selected column C. And I think that'll work, but I'm not sure because we've typed it out down here. But let me give you one of those keyboard shortcuts, but let's make it a little bit, let's turbocharge it. Remember the control sign, right? We jump all around. Well, what the shift does, it allows you to select multiple cells. So if you hold down shift and you use your arrow keys, you can see I'm selecting big sort of chunks of data. Well, if I take shift and control together, so I'm going to just select this bottom one, shift control arrow up, I just selected, in one fell swoop, those 2,500 cells in the C column. So let me slow down and do that again, because that's sometimes is a big jump for people. I'm going to get out of my formula. So I'm doing a bit of a tangent, but I think it'll help later on. So if you are within the data, you hold down shift control arrow up, it selects everything again until it hits a border or hits an empty cell. And I could still hold down shift and control and do arrow to the right, and I select everything else. But at least for our formula, I just want to select everything from C1 to C2500. So I'm going to go back here. Sorry for that little bit of a tangent. That is a huge time saver. So my range, I'm going to evaluate from C2500, shift, control, arrow up. So I've got my range here. And I want to say it's a Nissan, right? And notice how Excel put in the double quotes, right? Because it's not a cell, it's not a magic word, it's just a string. And then you pick.
Hey, Jack.
Yes?
Excuse me. What setting, so it does not automatically put the quotes in for me?
It doesn't. Interesting. I don't know.
I'm using Excel 365.
I would assume probably when you hit enter after you're done with the formula, it will. Yeah, Todd, I don't know the answer. But you can put them in yourself if you want. But so okay.
I was gonna say, I got a quick question on the criteria part. If Nissan is it case sensitive? So if I put in capital letters, will it still pull it?
I don't know. Let's try it. Let me get through the formula. Let's try it. Sometimes Excel is case sensitive and sometimes it's not. Like the find function is, but the search function is not. So it just sort of depends. But let me head back to this and we'll try to answer a question. So we've got the range we're evaluating, which is not the range, we're not evaluating prices. We're evaluating the brands. We're going to look at Nissan, and then I'm going to select the range I'm going to average. So I'm just going to select that bottom one, or I could even select it up here if I wanted to. Shift Control arrow. It selects everything. So hit OK. All right, so it says average price is like $12,000 about $66. Make that a dollar sign, make it a little bit easier to read. So let's go back to that formula. So somebody had the question, is it case sensitive? Well, let's try it out. Put an N in there, and looks like it's not. But if I put in, I'll just put NIS, it's not going to find anything. It's going to throw an arrow. And then we can do the same thing again with Ford, but remember what happened over here was that I didn't lock down the ranges here, so I had to go in and manually adjust them. But let's lock down our ranges. So we'll put in our dollar signs. So here's another shortcut. Instead of going like shift, at least on my keyboards, shift 4 to put it in the dollar sign. If you use F4, it'll actually put in the dollar signs for you. If you hit F4 a bunch of times, it'll sort of cycle through. The first time, it locks the column and the row. The second time is just the row. The third time is just the column. And the fourth time sort of clears it out. But if I hit F4 here, I'll hit 4 there, I'll do it there, I'll do it there, and I'll do it there. It's just a little bit of a nice time saver. So now if I look at this, I've locked all my ranges. I can copy and paste it down. So I just did a Control C, Control V. The only problem is I've got, I have to type in Ford here. So it looks like holy cow, that's an expensive Ford. The average Ford is $21,667. So everybody try to do that. I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but I want to have everybody work through these things. That's the best. If you just sit here and listen to me talk about Excel, that sounds terrible. So everybody try to work through it.
Chad, when you're doing the F4,
Yep.
do you have to highlight the whole range that you're entering in the dollar sign? Because I was doing it was just putting it in, like if I was at the C2500, just put it there.
Yeah. So Todd's asking, actually, it was a really good question. I'm trying to leave it sort of basic today. But the question Todd had is, hey, I'm hitting F4 here, and let's just pay attention to my C1. Well, if I just put my cursor, or like the little blinking cursor on the C1, it's just going to do the C1. But if I highlight the whole range, this one's a little messed up. Let me do it again. So if I highlight the range and hit F4, it'll change everything together. Now, fun question, because we have two ranges on this. Well, what happens if I highlight everything and I hit F4? Nope, because it doesn't, because you've got this Nissan in between. So if you highlight your entire range, you don't have to do it twice. You just have to do it one time. It's a good question. And I'm going to do a bit of a gut check. That Ford seems really expensive, so I'm going to turn my filters on, Control Shift L. Let me look for Fords. Ford. And how many Fords do we have? Got a decent amount of Fords. Just some expensive Fords in here. And what do I have? Yeah, my average price is $21,667. So the formula is working. The data originally had the model of the car, but it was really unreliable, and I took it out just for the purposes of us learning.
So Chad, I'm gonna ask again, it's kind of a silly or stupid question, but a lot of times I always have a hard time finding where a lot of this stuff is. So when you came in and you started entering in the 3 different blocks there originally to set it up, where do you start that again?
What do you mean by the 3 blocks? Oh, you mean the...
You came in to create your formula itself.
Sure, okay. So let me demonstrate over here. Let's create a let's create a new formula over here. So I've got a blank cell. If I go to this FX, this insert function, it should be to the left of your formula bar. Is your formula bar turned on?
It is.
Sometimes it's not. So that is the sort of the beginning of the little wizard. And then you can write, you're like, you know what, I need to do a formula. I think I want to do like the sum function or something that has to do with sum. So I just type it in here. It searches for all the formulas that relate to the sum function. You know, some of these are like calculus. We're not gonna do that stuff. And it'll find the formulas that you need. Remember, and I talked about, you know, there's average if, there's sum if, count if, there's a bunch of those different ones. So that's where we started. In our case, we started with the average, and I'm going to...
Okay, I got it. Yep,
You
I
got-
see it now. Sorry, okay, so I was actually putting average and hitting okay, and then it didn't work, so it's actually on there. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to look at my agenda here. So we talked about our filters. We talked about moving using keys. Moving between tabs. You know, this is just something I bring up because it can save you a lot of time. You know, some of my files will have 20, 30 tabs. But if you want to just put in some blank sheets of your own to demonstrate this, if you hold down Control, and at least on my keyboard it's page down, it'll move you to the right, or Control and page up will move you to the left. Again, not a huge time saver, but if you do it enough during the day, you know, maybe you can leave 10 minutes early. But the key concepts I wanted to talk about today was like the ranges and like our building blocks. I think that's a really important piece of all this. Let's do one more formula and we'll call it a day. So up at the top in column N, put in a column header. We'll call it premium. Okay, and we're gonna. Yeah, I'm getting some background noise. If folks can just mute themselves, unless you've got a question. So let's take this data we had before that we created, and then let's use a formula to. What I want to do is figure out if something is expensive. I want to add 10% onto the price. Okay. Give me a second here. Let's see. All right. All right. So let's use we're going to use our if statement. All right. So equals if. And at this point, I don't expect you guys to write your own formulas unless you're comfortable with it already. But I'm going to go to my little wizard. And let's try to fill this out. So what I want to know is, does this cell one to my left, in this case is column M, row 2, because I'm already in row 2, does it equal, I'm going to write expensive. If it's expensive, then I want to take the price, and I'm going to multiply it by 1.1. I'm going to add 10%. If it's not expensive, I'm just going to write the price. So I'm clicking on the cells here. So hopefully this makes sense to people, but what do people notice here? What looks wrong?
Negative in red. Right?
Yeah.
Question mark in
So we
red.
what's wrong here? What doesn't look right?
Because of the text string.
Yeah, exactly.
Have the quotations on it.
That's exactly what it is. So again, a word, word like Todd, Rich, Doug, whomever, doesn't mean anything to Excel. It's not a magic word. So we've got to put double quotes around it. So if M2 here equals expensive, I'm going to add 10%, otherwise I'm not. And you'll notice I went through and I clicked on the cells and it wrote in the B2. I guess you could write it yourself, but it's just easier to click on the cells. So everybody do that with me. And let's get the formula going and then double click it down, and then we'll do some spot checks to make sure the formula is working. But let me go back into the wizard, FX. Okay. So I got my logical test. So logical test is just going to return something that's true or false. Or if you've taken some sort of programming courses before, it's a Boolean value, which is just fancy for true or false. So my logical test, true or false. If it's true, I'm going to take B, column B, B2, times 1.1, otherwise it's just B2. And then I'm going to double click it down. So let's check a few of these. I'm going to check this count number 13. It was a Chevrolet. The price was $31,900, and so we said it was expensive, and so we added 10%. And if I do that over here, 31,900, say that equals that times 1.1. Yep. So it looks like it's working to me. And then let's check maybe an affordable one. Okay, so the affordable one was 6,300. I did not add a premium, so it stayed at 6,300. All right. Was everybody able to do this with me? Did this make sense? Okay. And that's all I've got for today. Any questions on the topics we covered? All right. Was this useful for people? Too advanced, too basic, about right?
Refresher is always good, Chad.
Okay.
Yeah, helpful, man.
We will get a little bit more advanced, but I promise not to leave anyone behind. But at least the first day or the first hour, I just like to cover some of the building blocks, and it helps people not get lost.
Well, and you taught us a life-changing trick about how to turn your filters on. I mean, that's worth the price of admission right there.
I've got a coworker, and he was I sort of taught him that, and he went and was speaking to a group at GE, Rich Reedy. I think it was like a brand new HSAM class or something, and he did it, and he was working with stuff, and the whole room sort of froze. They're like, "What did you just do?" And he's like, "Oh, we just, I worked with this guy Chad, and he taught me this." And he's like, "That will literally save me, 20 minutes a day." So that's sort of the purpose of this, and to beef up everybody's Excel skills. And you're not going to be an Excel ninja at the end, but I guarantee I'll teach you 4 or 5 things that you didn't know before, and hopefully make you more efficient. All right. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk next Thursday.
Appreciate it, Chad.
All right, thank you very
Right.
much.
Appreciate this very much, Chad. Taking the time to do this for us.